Sur les bords du lac du Bourget, la radio autrement. Radio Grand Lac.
Your English Weekly. Your English Weekly. La chronique 100% en anglais de Radio Grand Lac avec Sinead.
Hello, hello. Bonjour à tous ceux qui écoutent Radio Grand Lac 92.1 FM. Donc bien franco-anglais, hein? Et bienvenue à l'émission Your English Weekly, animée par moi-même, Sinead, professeur d'anglais. Cette émission stimule la langue anglaise et l'expression anglaise. Vous pouvez écouter toutes les semaines le mardi de midi et quart à midi et demi. Et cette semaine, c'est notre dernière émission pour 2023. 2022, jusqu'à 2023. Oui, excusez-moi. Donc, chaque semaine, vous pouvez découvrir soit un nouvel article inspiré par Le Gardien, du magazine Vocab, un étudiant de Your English Workshop ou à l'université, ou aujourd'hui, une de mes collègues, my boss, Sophie. Hello, Sophie.
Hello!
So, vous pouvez réécouter cette émission sur YouTube. Cette émission est aujourd'hui sponsorisée par Your English Workshop, qui est un centre de formation pour l'apprentissage d'anglais certifié Calliope. Nous organisons les stages d'anglais pour les primaires ou les collégiens pendant les vacances scolaires en petits groupes. L'axe principal de ces stages est d'améliorer l'expression orale et bien sûr prendre confiance. Restez à l'écoute pour les prochaines 15 minutes avec notre expression de la semaine avec Sophie Bourgade. Et quelques nouveaux mots de la semaine avec la leçon cette semaine qui est de niveau C1. Donc, Sophie, hi and welcome to Your English Workshop.
Hi, Sinead.
So, Sophie, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do today?
Okay, I'm Sophie Bourgade. I'm a teacher on the science campus at Le Bourget du Lac. And so we've been working together for like over 12 years now, I think.
Yeah, I think
I've been
so.
there even longer than that. And I'm also a vice mayor, a city councillor in Chambéry, and I'm in charge of equality and fighting discriminations.
Okay, and I think that's what we're going to talk about today, isn't it?
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, so thanks again for coming for all that. So, Sophie, before we start, do you know the expression dress to kill?
Dress to kill.
Well, today we had to dress to kill to come here because it was so snowy and cold.
Yeah. You often dress to kill.
Oh, you're so sweet. Well, stay tuned, so I will explain to you at the end of the show. So, Sophie, today, before we start, can you explain a few of the words our listeners are going to hear today? For example, wage a war. Can you tell our listeners what wage a war is?
To wage a war is when you do a war, or you organize a war. You are fighting.
You're fighting something that you believe in now. Okay, and a hunger strike.
A hunger strike is when you are like a prisoner and you stop eating, or you're defending a cause and you stop eating to put pressure on the
people and around you to listen to you and to believe your cause.
Exactly.
What is a rally?
A rally, it's like a big demonstration, a big event that's organized in support of something, a cause, or and where a lot of people turn up.
Yeah, where a lot of people get together. Facilities. What are facilities?
Facilities, it's all the buildings or the equipment that you need for a specific mission.
Yeah.
Like it can be for sports or for health or
for the Mary.
Teaching or
okay, fantastic.
Radio.
For example, yeah. And millennia. What is a millennia?
Oh, 1,000 years. Like you've got centuries and millennia.
Yes,
yeah.
Exactly. And lodging a complaint.
To lodge a complaint is when you go to the police or to a judge and you say that I want to officially complain about something bad that happened.
Has happened, yeah. What is to ponder?
To ponder, to think deeply about something.
Exactly. And to split?
To split is when you share something into, like banana split.
Oh, that's nice. That makes us hungry already. And our last word of the day, running an errand.
Oh, running an errand, it's when you go to the grocery store, when you go to the post office, you've got something to buy, somebody to meet. It's something that
needs to be done.
Needs to be done, and is mostly done by women.
Oh, yes, very often. Okay, Sophie, so do you want to tell us today about the gender equality and how you can fight, or how we can fight to make things better?
Okay, yeah, that's why I told that's what I told Sinead that I'd be glad to speak about, because some people may think that a great deal has been accomplished and that today we live in a world where everybody's equal, men and women, there's no color, etc. But it's not exactly the case. It's better, and maybe we'll never get to societies that's totally equal. But we need to keep in mind how much has been accomplished, not forget, and also how much remains to be done, and work on it. Because in France, for example, when we talk about gender equality, we think about the vote, and the women's right to vote is only a very recent thing in France. It was voted in 1944, and women voted for the first time in 1945.
Which is better than in England or some of our neighboring countries.
In England, the vote was given to women in 1928.
Oh, okay. Excuse me.
And the fact is that, British women were more vindicative than French women were, and they actually waged a war on the government.
That's right.
And it was much harder than what was done in France. And in my opinion, that's why, they got the vote before in England than they did in France. So they were very vindicative, but they mainly harmed themselves. They didn't, kill anyone, but some of them died through hunger strikes because they were arrested, because there were lots of protests, lots of rallies and demonstrations, and there was a lot of police violence and arrests, and also they destroyed mailboxes and buildings sometimes, so they always made sure that they didn't kill anyone. Sinead, do you know, France got the vote very late, Great Britain a little bit before. Do you know what the first country which awarded women the vote, what country it was?
I'm not sure, but would it be one of the northern countries in Northern Europe?
Well,
would I be far off?
Very far off. A lot of the northern countries, Scandinavian countries, gave the vote before France, but the first country was New Zealand.
Oh, right.
And it was in 1893, so a long time ago. Women were not allowed to be elected yet. I think that was 1919, but today, in New Zealand, they have a female prime minister. You know her name?
Oh, I can't remember. Tell our listeners.
It's Jacinda Ardern, and she's young. She's like 40-ish, and she did a very good job through the COVID crisis, etc. And she's a very, very popular political leader. So we have a lot to learn from that in France, because we've never really had
a woman. Like in Ireland, we've had a few women who have been president, and of course have done great jobs, like the men do too, But yeah,
it's sometimes harder for the women, but we have a female prime minister at the moment, so that's to be noted.
Yeah,
and because in France, we may well be the country of human rights, but we got the vote, so half a century after New Zealand, 20 years after Great Britain, 10 years after Turkey. So a lot of countries came before us. And I think it's important in France not to forget that, the expression "les droits de l'homme" was chosen so as to exclude women.
That I did read in because I have read your little notes.
Olympe de Gouges, she was the revolutionary philosopher, activist, journalist, and she said that if women could be guillotined, then they should be able to vote. And she was guillotined.
So that didn't last long. Do you have a few dates, though, that are interesting for our listeners? I think that you prepared a few...
Yeah, I prepared a few dates that are more recent than, the Revolutionary era, because we don't all know these dates. In July 1965... this is when Parliament passed a law allowing women to open a bank account in their own names and to work without their husband's consent. Their husband saying, okay, signing a piece of paper saying that you can work and open a bank account. 65. Okay, so that's
that
yesterday.
goes back to our parents, you know?
Yeah, my mom, when she started working was in 1962, so I spoke to her about that. She was like, wow, you had to ask Dad for permission. It's scary. In December 1967 was the sale of contraceptive products that was allowed, but it took like several years before it actually was available in the pharmacies, like 5 years later. Another big change was 1970 when parental authority appeared as a law, as a legal term, and it replaced paternal power. Because in France, since the Napoleon Civil Code in 1804, a woman was considered a minor, and she did not have the right to make any decisions concerning herself by herself, and even fewer decisions relating to the children. So you were always subordinated to the head of the family, whether it was your father or your husband.
Yeah, and I think this still exists today in some countries, unfortunately.
Yeah, and it still exists in some minds, even in France as well, in the way things are run. In January 1975 was the Loi Veil that set abortion rights for French women. And again, they were not implemented straight away. We needed to, organize the facilities and convince the doctors and make sure that it was actually available.
Yeah, and we can see this in her film that she just came out with Simone, which was a lot about this, which was fantastic. Yeah.
There's also a big film, a very interesting fiction called L'Événement about Annie Ernaux's sort of more or less biography of being a student and becoming pregnant when abortion was illegal in France in the 60s. 1975 is an important year as well for another reason, and I speak as a teacher here, but it was the year of the Haby law, Haby, and it's the law that generalized co-education. Co-education means that boys and girls had to go to the same schools and the same classrooms. Before that, it existed in some schools, but in 75, it became the norm. It had to be co-educational.
Which was great because we started at this point.
It was a big turning point, I think. And however, some prestigious schools, like the École Normale Supérieure or Saint-Cyr, the military school, only became co-educational in the 80s. So it took a few more years. A few more years. And you still have like 20% of women in Saint-Cyr, for example, or maybe even less than that. All these laws were there to change a set of affairs, to make things change in the right direction. But, the organization has been, organized for like millennia, and it's going to take a while, obviously.
Yeah. And Sophie, there's so much we can talk about all of this, but we've only got a few minutes left. So maybe you've got some ideas of how you can make some social changes that you'd like to share with the listeners today.
Okay, so if I was like head of the government, what would I do?
For example. Okay. And I do hope you might be one day, who knows?
So maybe 3 things. I think it's very important to give a longer parental leave and to give an equal or more or less equal parental leave to the fathers or to the second parents, because this would be a big way of like breaking the gender stereotypes and the social organization, making sure that the men spend 4 months or 5 months or 6 months with the baby when they're born. And I think it would make maybe for happier children
like they do in Scandinavia.
Totally. That's an idea that I've stolen from them. It's not, I didn't invent it.
No, but I think it's something maybe to take a leaf out of their book.
Yeah, definitely. Good expression. And another good thing would be to really teach students and teachers about discrimination and gender-based violence, and also teach teachers to be careful because there's a lot of biases. Like in the math textbooks, it's the fathers who drive the cars and the mothers who do the dishes, and we need to change that. And we need to put make our students study literature that was written by women and not always by men.
And also, I think asking questions in class. We have to ask really as many questions to girls as we do to boys.
And as teachers, we tend to ask the boys because they're not as quiet, they don't do their homework as much. And this is not just a major difference that's genetic or anything. It's just the way boys are raised and girls are raised is a little bit different, and we need to mix the two ways of raising children.
Yeah.
And maybe a last thing would be to, as mothers, our fathers, brothers, we need to learn how to listen to the people who have a story of discrimination or a story of violence, because it's a lot of people. It's a lot of people, and it's a lot of women. 10 or 20% of women, probably maybe even more. So,
and I think you have an address. If somebody does have something they want to share, who can they contact, Sophie?
Yeah, there's an association in Savoie called Savoie de Femmes. So Savoie in one word as in Savoie, but it's also the way that women may want to pursue. And they, you can call them if you know somebody who's a victim of domestic violence. They have a website, and their
do you
phone
have the number? Oh, great.
Is 0479855368, and they have a website as well, and you can go and meet them and have a chat with them as well.
Okay, so that's very good. Thanks for all of that today, Sophie. It's fantastic.
You're welcome.
And preparing and sharing this lesson, but not just a lesson, just these dates that are important, that have made a change in our society today. So don't hesitate to contact the association. You can, of course, come back to YouTube and listen to it again with this show. And now let's go back before we finish, Sophie, to our expression of the day, dress to kill. So dress to kill is, yes, to be extravagant or fancy in stylish clothes. Not like me always. I'm not very stylish today, huh?
Oh, yes, you are.
Oh, you're so sweet. But to impress others also thoroughly. So, for example, I'm going to the fashion show on Saturday, so I must dress to kill in case somebody might see me. So sometimes it's a bit like that as well. So I better dress to kill is to try to keep really now up in the beautiful, fancy, beautiful clothes.
It was the title of a comedy show by, what's his name?
I don't know. I don't remember. So, well, that's all from us today. Thanks, Sophie, for coming and being with us today. And
you're welcome.
If you wish to listen to this podcast again, don't hesitate to find us on YouTube. Also, you will see our Facebook page with the expression of the week. So that's all from us today. Bye to you from us at you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Your English Weekly. Your English Weekly. La chronique 100% en anglais de Radio Grand Lac avec Sinead.